A tiny amplifier with an interesting switch in an interesting place. Why would you have a switch on the bottom where it's hard to reach? Okay, so this is the AEMA A07 Max. If I describe it as a cheap Chinese Class D amplifier, well, that's what it is. But low cost doesn't have to mean low quality or performance. Let's unbox it. So here we have the AEMA audio model A07 Max. Okay, so this is a kitchen accident. So it's not serious, but you're better off not seeing it. But my devilled kidneys with an aubergine puree topped with mushy peas and a fried egg was just wonderful. Maybe I'll make a video on that. Anyway, here we have it. So we've got a guarantee card. Put that to the side. We've got a sticker. Does anybody actually stick these stickers on anything? I don't really know, but I think it's a sticker. Oh, I don't know. It's not relevant to my needs. We've got a manual, and of course there must be a manual. We've got a mains lead. We've got a power supply, or a brick, as some people call it. And we've got the thing itself, the AEMA 07 Max. Isn't that just a thing of beauty, a thing of max beauty? So let's have a look at the manual first. I'll just get those out of the way because, let's get that out of the way and just have a look at this power supply, because this is important. Because when you buy the AEMA 07 Max, you might buy it by itself and you've got to find your own power supply, or you might buy it with a power supply and there's a choice of power supplies. So the minimum power supply voltage is 24 and the maximum is 48. And of course, by the simple sheer laws of physics, the more volts you put into it, the more watts you can get out of it. So I'm going to say that unless you know that you only need low power, why wouldn't you get the highest voltage power supply and get the most watts out of this machine? So the power supply I have here, which was supplied with the unit for me, is 36 volts. So we're in the middle there. 36 volts, 6 amps, 216 watts. So what we know from this is that we can't get more than 216 watts out of this, which would be 108 watts per channel. So when you see things like the relevant page on Amazon and it says 600 watts, you are not going to get 600 watts from this with this power supply. And remember that there are different ways of measuring watts. I prefer average power because you know where you stand with average power. So in terms of average power, we can't get more than 108 watts per channel out of this power supply into this amp. But now we know where we stand on that, so I can put that aside. So let's just make sure I've got a nice composition here. I like things to be nice. Let's have a look at the manual. So it's one of these compact manuals. I like manuals to be bigger and better, something like that. Not hugely big like that, but bigger than this for preference. But then it kind of goes with the size of the machine, doesn't it? So What we see on the first page, it's mono or 2.0 channel stereo amplifier. I think we know what we mean by mono, and we'll go into that in a moment. 2.0, why is it just not 2 channels? Well, the 0.0 would be your subwoofer channel if it had one, and it doesn't have one, and you wouldn't expect it, so no problem there. So we know what 2.0 means. Now, look at this. Colour, the magic of colour. I do like that in a manual. I like a manual that shows that someone has put, or a team of people have put care and attention into it. So we've got the usual things here. What is what? So we've got 9 things. We've got 9 things to control on this, to fiddle with. And some of us do love the fiddle factor, don't we? Operation steps. Connect the passive speaker to the speaker interface. The passive speaker will mean that it's not an active speaker, because if it's an active speaker, you don't need this. You know, I don't mind active speakers. It's just that, do I have any at the moment? I do, but they're in a cupboard. I might get them out one of these days and put them on test. Anyway, this connect the passive speaker to the speaker interface. This, I believe, will be the speaker interface. I'm just using a bit of intuition there, but, you know, it could possibly be it. It says SPK out, so that kind of makes you think of speaker, doesn't it? These are nicely sized binding posts, and I'm not terribly a fan of the binding post. If you use it with a spade connector, then that can be convenient, but it takes the banana plug as well. Just be careful with the banana plug that you don't plug it into your main socket by mistake, which in some countries you can do. Not in the UK though, so I'm safe, and I hope a lot of you are safe as well. Just don't do it, just don't do it. So that'll be the speaker interface. And let's see where we go from there. Connect the audio source to be used to the RCA input port. A port. They're making it very formal, aren't they? So this will be the audio input port on the RCA connector. Someone was, I nearly used a bad word there. Someone was politely complaining in my comments this morning that the RCA connector is not a very well designed connector. The thing, and it dates back to, I think it's the 1920s or the 1930s. The thing is, though, that it works well enough, which is why it's never been superseded in practical use. I mean, there are different connectors, XLR connectors, but they're bulky. And the RCA connector, it's small, and it works well enough that no one's seen fit to get rid of it. If you want to look up interesting connectors, which are things of beauty, then look up LEMO connectors of a variety of kinds. You will appreciate that tip if you do. Going back to the operation steps. Connect the power supply, DC voltage range 24 to 48. Switch the mono stereo mode switch on the lower shell of the machine to select the desired mode for use. Now, this is a very interesting feature here, because you can have it in mono or you can have it in stereo. So the idea of having it in mono is you can combine the 2 channels into one in bridge mode. So instead of having 216 watts theoretical maximum with the 32 volt power supply, you won't get that, but you might get quite close. Instead of having 216 watts split between the 2 channels, so 108 watts per channel, you get 216 watts theoretical maximum with that power supply into one channel. So it is, I was going to say twice as loud, so it's twice as many watts. So that gives you, oh, it's 3 dB. Of course it's 3 dB. It's a bit early in the morning for me just at the moment, but twice as many watts is 3 dB. And funnily enough, that'll give you 3 dB more in terms of voltage as well. Go calculate. Anyway, so you can use this as a mono amplifier, in which case you possibly want 2 to drive your stereo speakers, because, come on, who listens in mono these days? That's comment bait, as we call it on YouTube. The tricky thing is going to be, though, if you are using 2 of these in mono mode to drive each speaker separately in mono blocks, as the audiophiles call them, you will struggle to line up your volume control. So it's going to be every time you listen to your equipment, listen to your system, and you set the volume, you're going to have to match it on both channels. Take my word for that. You're going to get fed up pretty quickly. But the answer for that is to whack it up to maximum, then control the volume on whatever's feeding it. And that is a practical way of working. And try it and see if it works. It should work. Going a bit further into that, we've got indicators here for mono and stereo, and that will be a good thing. I should plug it in, shouldn't I? So I've plugged it into the UK's famously powerful 240 volt mains, 240 volts. This cable is a bit irritating, but in use it could be managed, cable management. So the UK's famously powerful 240 volt mains. Someone in the comments is going to say, hang on a minute, doesn't the UK run on 230 volts? There's a whole story behind that, but I'm pretty sure that what comes out of my main socket is 240 volts. Commenters, have a field day on that. Right, what was I doing? So I was examining these pretty lights here. So that blue LED is telling me that we are in stereo mode. And if I switch into mono, I've got a pokey tool here. Not the best pokey tool in the world, but sometimes you have to manage with what you've got. Then the mono LED comes on, and I'm rather disappointed it's not a different colour, but hey, that doesn't matter at all, does it? So this is good, and the reason I'm going to say it's good is because I tested a similar kind of amplifier quite recently, and the stereo mono switch was on the front panel, and I didn't point that out in the video, and I wish I had done now. Doesn't matter if you just switch it to the setting you want and you leave it there, and you know it's meant to be left there. But it's not a switch you're going to be using in normal operation. You're going to set up your system and then just leave it. And the consequences of switching it while you're operating it, well, you just don't know, because what could happen is that nothing happens apart from only one speaker works. I don't know. Unexpected things happen. Or perhaps the whole thing just blows up. I don't know what happens, and I haven't tested it, and I'm not going to test it. So this is the place for the mono stereo switch on this amplifier and any stereo amplifier. So I do recommend that. All right, just balance my composition again. Where are we now? Where are we? T space earn. Turn the on-off knob clockwise to start the machine and adjust to the appropriate volume. Good. Can't say fairer than that. I'm just going to change my glasses for my +3s. I could do with everything being a bit bigger. So we've got a frequency response chart here, and I do like this, to have this bundled in with the equipment, and it's made on an audio precision measurement thingy, and they're known for being good and costly, which is why I don't have one. Test set, I think, is the word I'm looking for. Maybe I'll bring my ferrograph test set out one of these days. If there's a clamour in the comments, maybe I'll do that. So what we've got here is we've got a little bit of a drop in response above about 10 kilohertz, and that is calibrated in decibels. So it's just under a decibel. And I'm telling you, you will not hear that. You will not hear that. Even if you can hear up to 20 kilohertz, you will not hear that. Or if you do, well, tell us in the comments. That's what the comment section is there for. I mean, if you can, you brag about it to your heart's content. It's a very enviable ability to have. What I will look at in a future video is there are reports of the high frequency response of these Class D amplifiers being variable according to the load impedance, and that is something which I will check into at some point in the future. It's going to be rather fiddly, so I'm probably going to put it off a bit, but ultimately I will get round to it. So here we have the spectrogram, or the fast Fourier transform, as it's wanting to call it. So we've got, where's that? That's the input tone, and that would be 1 kilohertz. And we've got just a load of noise, which is more than 100 decibels down. So that is perfectly fine. You will not hear that. You will not hear it. It's got a funny scale, though, I'm just going to say, because 2 to 4 to 6, so it's in increments of 2 kilohertz, which is a linear scale, and really a logarithmic scale is much more appropriate for this, where each step is a doubling of frequency. So you'd have the steps further apart, and each one would be a doubling of frequency. So you go like 2, 4, 8, 16, like that. But I'm picking on very small details here, so don't worry about that. Not a cause to worry about. Now, here, I'm hoping that there is a web version of this that I could possibly read, or you could possibly read, but I'm just going to leave it to you. You know, take some responsibility. See if you can find that on the web. Signal-to-noise ratio, total harmonic distortion. These days, it seems to be more fashionable to have total harmonic distortion plus noise, but that's, again, is an issue I can just gloss over. Here we've got some measured power, and we could try and presume that these are correct. So, 48 volts, 10 amps. So, presuming you've got the best power supply that you could possibly have for this equipment, 48 volts and 10 amps, that would be a theoretical maximum of 480 watts or 240 watts per channel, which is still nowhere near the 600 watts that you commonly see advertised for this and other similar amplifiers. You know, that's something that really does need sorting out so we can have reasonable, realistic expectations in the specifications. But anyway, let's see what figures we've got here. So for stereo, we've got, see, 250 watts times 2, that's 500 watts. That's more watts than the power supply has, so that's impossible. Into 8 ohms, of course, it's less, and this is exactly what we expect. And then in mono, we've got 315 watts times 1. I would have expected it to be no, I see a discrepancy there, but I'm not going to get my calculator out on this instance. Commenters, this is what you're here for. Right, stereo mode. So this is showing us where the connections go, and we do have to understand this because of these two different modes. There are things to understand. So we've got your input device going to your RCA input. What did it call it? Port. The input port going to the RCA input port, and we've got the speakers going to the passive speakers, and that diagram could be a little bit more in proportion, couldn't it? But I think that's okay. I think anyone will understand that. So we've got the aux out, which is going to your active subwoofer or your power amplifier, and your passive subwoofer, that would be. I've never got into subwoofers. I mean, I don't rule them out at all, but that would be something for the future, perhaps. Now, the mono mode, this is where it gets a bit more complicated, in that you've got your source, and it's going to right and left, and your output is coming from, well, it's coming from your two red terminals, which is just what you expect, and it's labelled on there. So that is nice and clear what you have to do. So this is something where you would want to follow the instructions and just make sure that you're doing it right. Of course, audiophiles know all about this, and they don't need any instructions, of course. They can assemble IKEA furniture without instructions. But for me, I like to be sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Now, here's a question. What's happening here? So if these are connecting to the right and left of the RCA input port, are they getting mixed together to go through the amplifier and through the speaker? I don't actually know that, and I would like to know that. But let's move on. So mono multiple machines mode. So we've got two of the IEMA A07 Max is, if that's the correct form of the plural. And we've got the input's going in there, and the aux is coming out there. So we're presuming that it's still stereo left and right to go into there. And it's not showing us where they go to. Well, I would have thought there and there. I'm not getting this. You know, I'm not getting this because if it's multiple mono, each one is going to have its own speaker, and why would there be two speakers? So I don't know what's going on there. So I'm just going to leave that, and commenters again, if you can figure it out, let us all know. This is more like it. A07 Max mono channel correct connection method. This looks better to me. So there's your source. They put a preamp in there, but it could be some different kind of source. And you're taking the left output to the left input. And I'm just going to put another pair of glasses on, just see if I can read that. You know, that does seem to say L, and that says R. This is correct, because when you look at the back of the machine, then they're reversed, obviously. So that is the left output, and going to the left input. Okay, I think that does make sense. It does make sense. It just takes a bit of figuring out which is which, but yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I don't think you'll go wrong. If you do set this up and you do go wrong, it's your fault, not mine. Right, specification, parameters. I think we've pretty much been through this, haven't we? More or less. But anyway, let's have a look. So, stereo max power, 300 watts times 2, if you believe that. Okay, it's got a different power supply. It's got 48 volts at 12 amps. Where's my calculator when I need it? Okay, there's my calculator when I need it. It's a bit grubby. Could do with a clean. That's an embarrassment, but anyway, here we go. So 48 volts times 12 equals 576. So the theoretical maximum with a 48 volt 12 amp power supply would be 576 watts across the two channels. So that's still not 300 times 2. But I'm going to have to move on from that, because all the similar amplifiers like this do have similar specifications. So make of that what you will. Total harmonic distortion plus noise, as I said earlier, 0.007%. You cannot hear that. You cannot hear that. Anybody in the commenters who says they can hear that, well, they can't. There's a challenge. Signal-to-noise ratio better than 110 dB. Once again, you can't hear that. Frequency response, 20 Hz to 20 kHz, plus or minus 1 dB. Well, we saw that from the chart, and that is fair. It's a small k, by the way. My old physics teacher would tell me to get that right if I made that mistake. Now, replaceable op-amp chips. So you can op-amp roll, as the audiophiles call it. So you can use any of these models of op-amp and hope to achieve a different sound, I guess. So you could prefer one, or you could prefer another op-amp, or you could prefer the OPA2604AP for classical music and the LME 49720NA for rock music. And those who like hip-hop music could choose the AD827AQ. I'm just making this up, you know. I've got quite a long memory at my rather advanced age, and one of the things I remember learning in my electronics classes at university was that a competent designer would design their circuitry so that the active device that was in use didn't matter as much as possible. That was the aim, to make it irrelevant which active device you were using. Obviously, there's some limitations, you know, more gain, more power handling capability, less noise, less distortion, better slew rate. But for preference, it wouldn't matter which active device you use. And this is just going contrary to all of that logic. And I don't think this is the right way to go, to be honest. I can see the sense in tube rolling, because if you're using tubes because you like that sound. And different tubes may or will sound different. But with op-amps, well, if you've got experience of op-amp rolling, tell me in the comments. It might be something which I will look at in a video in the future. So, frequently asked questions. All my cables are connected. Do I need to go through this? Why is the sound distorted? Ooh. Gosh, the input level may be too large. Well, yes, that is a classic. So, you can be in a situation where your input level is too high and it's clipped the input stage of whatever equipment you're using before the volume control. So there's nothing you can do with that volume control to remove the distortion. So that is a useful thing to bear in mind, because it can catch you out. These are good. I'm just going to hold it up to the camera, and you can pause the video and just read them at your leisure, because there is sense in this. There's a lot of sense in this. So yeah, I do like it. Product warranty QR code. that, I think, is enough for that. So, as I gently fondle the machine, I'm going to have a little bit of a look at the Amazon page for this. So, we've got superior audio quality, and it uses the Texas Instruments TPA3255 high-performance, low-distortion Class D amplifier chip. I think all of these similar amplifiers use that, so it must have something going for it. It uses the NE5532 operational amplifier chip. I've loved the NE5532 for many years. I think I'm going back 40 years with that. So clearly no progress has been made. I'm not kidding there. It's an old chip design, but it's a good chip design in my experience. And they ensure excellent sound quality and stable performance, showing the richness and clarity of music. So my commenters often ask me if I could be more subjective in my comments. So there we go. I'm being subjective. It shows the richness and clarity of the music. So high quality audio components. The mini home amplifier uses Japanese capacitors. ELNA, is that pronounced Elna? And German Wima capacitors, WIMA. As well as IT power management chips, large bounding posts, and positive and negative power supplies. Creates excellent sound quality, more stable in large dynamic music, and stronger sound layering. You see, I'm being subjective again. Okay, I'm reading it from the screen. But it's more stable in large dynamic music, and it has stronger sound layering. So if you want stronger sound layering, this clearly is the amp that you need to have. Okay, I'm going to skip some of this now because you can read up on this. Just go to Amazon, and my affiliate link, just get my finger pointing in the right direction, my affiliate link will be in the description. That's a nice convenience feature for you, and I get a small commission, which is nice for me. So win-win. I'm just going to read the last bullet point on the Amazon page because I'm not sure whether I should say that it's interesting or whether I should say I don't understand it. It says, note, pre-out level, that'll be this, so aux out, I think, is not controlled by the volume control because the A07 Max amplifier is not an integrated amplifier, so the sound cannot be adjusted when you connect it to pre-out. A07 Max machine preheating an hour or so, the sound quality tone better. Okay, this is a bit weird, isn't it? But we've got some useful information. So that volume control there does not control that there. That does seem to be what it says. So if you're using this with a subwoofer, then that is not going to affect your subwoofer volume. So I'm not going to say that's the best way of doing it. But I'm not a subwoofer user at the moment, so subwoofer enthusiasts, please comment on that. But at least that part makes sense. But the other part of it, the A07 Max machine preheating an hour or so, the sound quality tone better. So apparently what you need to do is, it's like other things in life. You need to prepare an hour in advance, and then when you've waited that hour, you'll be ready to go. I'm laughing at my own jokes now. They're so funny. So apparently you need to switch this on and leave it for an hour before you begin your listening session. Look, I'm drifting to the left again. There I am in the centre. You need to switch it on. You need to switch it on, wait an hour, then you're ready to listen. And the sound quality tone will be better, quoting from the web page. Okay, I don't really think that is true. Tubes need to warm up, of course they do. But solid state equipment, does it need to warm up? Does it really need to warm up? I don't think it's going to make any difference to anybody's listening quality. Imagine, though, you started listening to something lengthy, like a Wagner opera, and you just switched it on and you started playing it. The sound quality would get better and better and better over that. Sorry, the sound quality tone would get better and better and better over the course of the first hour, and then it would reach an optimum. But then what would happen after that? Would it continue to get better? Would it stay the same? Would it degrade? I don't really know. I'm going to say that it's ready to go as soon as you switch it on. That's my idea. What is not to like? This little amp has the look and feel of high quality. It's powerful for its size, and I have no quibble about sound quality. I've tested it in my alcove studio, where I make my irritating unboxing music, driving my B&W DM100 monitors. It's everything I need. One point about the aux out. I've tested that too, and the level doesn't change with the volume knob. Subwoofer users may be disappointed with that, but I'm sure there are other things you can do with a fixed output level. Tell me in the comments. Overall, what can I say? It's a nice amp and well within any audio enthusiast's budget. As always, AEMA sent me this amp, but other than that and any affiliate links in the description, there's no payment involved, so I can say what I like, and I've said it. See you soon.